Hello. I hope my microphone. Thank you very much. I'm hoping my microphone's on, and it is. Welcome to tonight. My name's Di Thomas. I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about doing something, really, I suppose, and how that something can kind of turn into an adventure. And I'm going to take you back a little bit first, a little bit into my past a little bit. When I was a young man, I didn't have a lot of aspirations, to be frank. If you look at this place, this was my aspiration. This is Penalta Colliery. It's from my hometown near Ystrad in South Wales, and it was my aspiration to work there. And at 16, in 1981, that's what I wanted to do. And I'm very thankful that my dad, who was a miner himself, said no. If you look at this picture, it kind of shows the history that sort of went on in my part of the world. My dad was part of the mines, my uncle was part of the mines, my grandfather was part of the mines, my great-grandfather was part of the mines, my both uncles died of silicosis, which is dust from the mines. In other words, you could say I was born to do it. And I think quite a lot of young people sometimes have that kind of thrust upon them, don't they? They haven't got any other options. But I decided to not do that, and I decided to go on further in my life. But interestingly enough, when I was in school, there was another guy there who had all the aspirations in the world. His name was David Hyatt. And when he was in school with me, he said, oh, well, I want to invent my own sports brand. Very different, wasn't it? You know, he was brought up exactly the same way as me, and he had a very, very different aspiration. And that, in part, has changed the way I think a little bit. By the way, this is David Hyatt's sports brand. Some of you might recognise it. It's called Howie's. It's one of the, was one of the foremost UK kind of outdoor sports brand, and still is, in fact, to some extent, although David has actually sold the company and moved on. He also started to do this, and he produced something called the Do Lectures. And they're really interesting lecture sets. They've just been voted one of the top inspirational lecture sets in the world, or certainly in the top 10. And he really just has a very simple mantra. He says, look, it's all about doing something. It's all about getting out there and doing a small do or a large do. But as long as you do something, then you can feel happy about yourself. As long as you do something, then you can kind of move forward, you know, and you can get energized and you can work. And he has a lot of really interesting people, very similar, you know, on a different scale to this. People speaking who are doing very small things, actually, but they're very inspirational to hear. And that, for me, has kind of changed the way I think about stuff a little bit. Because, to be honest with you, tonight I feel a bit of a fraud. Because I've got a gentleman up there that I know quite well who's climbed Everest. Blimey, that's an adventure. I've got another person up there who sailed around the world. Wow, that's a massive adventure. And I've got someone who's just recently come out of the jungle. Wow, that's a massive adventure. And I sort of started thinking to myself, well, really, perhaps I'm not very adventurous. You know, what am I doing here? Why am I actually here? I've no reason. I don't really know why Phil's actually asked me to speak. And then I started to analyse it a bit. And I realised that this man had quite a lot to do with it. And you've seen his sort of phrase on the posters. It's not what you do. It's not what you do in the 9 to 5. It's what you do with the 5 to 9. And this guy's called Alistair Humphreys, and he's a really interesting guy actually to read. And this is a really nice quote from him. And I think it kind of sums up really how I think about things a little bit. That, you know what, adventure really is in your head, isn't it? Adventure really is, you know, what you make of it. And that's a really interesting way to think of adventure, I think. So I started to look at adventure a bit, and you can see that, yeah, that's true. You know, adventure is about risk-taking. Adventure is about exciting experiences. It's not necessarily about climbing mountains, actually. It's just about those things. So I thought I'd kind of, you know, go through my do's, the things that I do that I find adventurous, if that makes sense. So one of the things I do is creative do's. So I'm actually a jewellery designer, believe it or not. Yes, I was going to go down the pit, but I ended up doing this. That's pretty diverse. And I ended up making gold and silver jewellery. So I do that. These are some of my pieces of work, and I sell it sometimes as well. These are glass beads that I've just started making. Each bead's actually made by hand. There's a lot of, intricate work actually made in that. And I get a tremendous amount out of that, just being creative. It's a real adventure to me. It's a bit of a risk take. I don't know if you've ever put things that you've made on sale, but it's really risky. Is anyone actually going to buy it? I do some other adventurous stuff as well. I kayak. This is a fairly ambitious kayak called the Martek Gorge. It's grade 4, and that's me actually coming down it. I also am a kayak coach, and this is a river called the Tean in Devon, and so I enjoy that part of life as well. But I get my adventure from other places. I play music. This is me getting lost in playing music, to be honest with you. I play the harmonica sometimes, and I think music, if you play it, it's a fantastic adventure. It's crazy. You risk take all the time. You're doing new experiences all the time. And to be honest with you, just playing the harmonica has got me talking to lots of people. I remember being on a bus once where I didn't know anybody at all, and all of a sudden the harmonica came out, and all of a sudden I knew everybody. It's kind of a weird way of working, I suppose. I've also done a bit of climbing. This is actually me and someone else who's going to talk in a while as well, actually on the highest mountain in Europe, which is Mount Elbrus. So it's about 5,600 meters, I think, just over. And we're actually getting to the summit there. And you can see it's pretty arduous, as in, it's snowy conditions, stuff like that. But actually, it's not a big climb. Anyone can do it, really. Anyone in this audience could have a good go at actually getting to the highest mountain in Europe and actually going up there. And you can see from there, it's pretty windy at the top, and hopefully in a minute you should be able to see, yeah, there we all are. And I'm in the middle actually, and that's me moving on Elbrus. I've done a couple of other mountains as well, and I'd like to do a bit more. I like high places. I find them adventurous. Sitting on top of the Alps like this and just falling asleep, or just whiling away the days, is really good. But I also get the same feelings just being on the Downs and just doing the same thing. I find that really adventurous as well. I also, for my living, I'm a teacher. And I sort of came into teaching, and to be honest with you, I find teaching really exciting. One of the biggest adventures of my life, you could say. I think imparting information to people is a really good thing to do. And even if you don't want to become a teacher, just try and impart information to people. Teach someone something. It's really useful. Teaching has led me all over the world, actually. This is where I used to live in the Caribbean. I used to call this my beach, because no one else tended to walk on it. So that was a bit of an adventure, but I was teaching at the time. This is me teaching in South Africa. And it's led me, these kids particularly had never really used a video camera before. It was a really interesting experience, introducing children to technology that was completely alien to them and actually working like that. And this is me. Who was there? Put your hand up. This is me teaching you guys last Sunday, yeah? And I was actually teaching them first aid, because I'm a first aid instructor, and it was a real pleasure going out with Ringma students and actually doing some of their DV training and actually being on the Downs. It was quite kind of an interesting day, guys, wasn't it, really? We had everything from hailstones to sunshine to rain and a hunt and all sorts of things actually happening. Okay, it was a really exciting day. I really enjoyed doing that. It was great. And the body there, by the way, is Helen. She's at the back somewhere. She's my body. I also do something called bivvying, and I don't know if you've ever done this before, but it's a really liberating experience. You just grab a bag and you grab a sleeping bag and you just walk at night and you go and find somewhere to sleep, and then you wake up in the morning. And it's like being away for about 4 days or something. It's just an overnight thing, and there's some people in the audience who come and do this with us, with a little team of bivviers, if you like. And I recommend you trying it if you've never done it. Tents are overrated, So this is us bivvying in the snow. We like the snow, actually. In fact, some of the best bivvies are in the snow. We all agree, okay? Bivvying is really great. It's a good adventure. Some of the other future do's, I was really pleased to see Phil putting this board up here. And this is me and Darren, my friend there, and it says Mont Blanc. And one of the reasons it says that on there is because we tried to do Mont Blanc, and I certainly failed on Mont Blanc. Darren did a lot better than I did. But it's one of the things that I want to go back and actually do. But I want to do other things as well. I want to go on a long journey cycle race, a cycle tour, and I haven't done that yet, so I'm going to try and do that. And I want to do the Devizes of Westminster 100-mile kayak race, because I haven't done that yet. And I've got a list, you know, it's massive. And it keeps growing all the time. And I think that's what this adventurous spirit is all about as well. Once you actually get into it, you know, it's kind of a rolling ball. You don't stop. I teach computing for a living. That's what I do. I'm a leader of digital things. But I think that this statement is really important for young people. I think we have to get life in balance. And actually, you know, I use computers and I use IT as a tool. And this stuff is really important. So I like that statement. Log off, shut down, go outside. It's a great statement. Hands up has been to Welsh Camp. I wonder if you recognise where this is. Because this is a cave called Porthorogov Cave, and this is something called a letterbox. It's a crawl space, very, very small, very tight, very confined. And the last time I was there, I was actually teaching in this school. And so I find that's a really full circle thing for me, to talk about Porthorogov Caves. And actually I was teaching in this school the last time I was actually in there. And when I look at that picture, it just reminds me how lucky I was not going down the pit. And it reminds me that actually the world's full of choices, and I made the right one then. By the way, 10 years later, in 1991, that pit was shut. So it probably was the right choice, wasn't it? But certainly, it reminds me of that. And that's the entrance to Porthorogov Cave, if you remember it, all you people who went there. In short, then, life is full of adventure. But adventure is what you make of it. Adventure can be the smallest thing, or the biggest, massive, hugest thing in your life, you know, the trip around the world. But adventure could be just a walk on the downs. It could be teaching someone something. It could be making something, taking a risk, playing music in front of someone for the first time. But definitely my life would be completely boring without it. Thank you very much indeed.